Hello, Coach. Bob Halliday, WRL.com right here. Over your first 5 games last year, you averaged 166 yards per game on the ground. Over the last 7, nowhere close to that. 4 games where you didn't even break 100. And this despite having 2 running backs who are now good enough to be in the NFL. Was it because of injuries, say, to the offensive line, or was it actually by design?
Yeah, I don't know exactly if I can give you that. I think it's more about winning. And at that time, Devin was throwing the ball pretty good, and Emeka and some of the guys making plays. Our offense is built to take what we get. But there is a mentality about rushing the football. I do think the loss of Chandler Zavala, which happened in conjunction with what you're talking about, was a bigger loss than probably people thought at the time. He's a very good run blocker for us, and having him and Icky next to each other presented a pretty big challenge to the defenses we were playing. But definitely an area we want to improve upon, and I know it's something that room takes a lot of pride in.
Coach, to your right, center of the aisle.
Hey, Dave. Mike Barber, Richmond Times-Dispatch. I'm curious for a coach to have a returning quarterback, to have a player with that level of experience. How does that maybe dictate the pace of how quickly you can install and do things in camp, and overall just how big an advantage is it to have experience at that position?
Yeah, I think, if you look at the Atlantic Division, all 7 teams have their quarterback returning, and so all of us have the same blessing right now. It's different, when you know who that guy is and you like what that guy brings to the table, and he's a good leader, and he can not just go out and execute your offense, but in Devin's case, he's doing different things than he was doing last year and the year before. He's studying defenses. He's not worried about what our plays are or how he runs our plays as much as he is what he can do to help teach those plays to other players and how he can get the guys around him to perform. So he's in a different place, which makes what's going on our team different. If you don't know who your quarterback is, it's a lot different dynamic for the entire roster, even the defensive guys, because the leadership that comes from his position is paramount.
Coach, to your left, right in front of you.
Coach Dan Tortora, wakeupcalldt.com, right here. And so looking at the fact that this is the last time we're going to see divisions in the ACC, how you're handling that and looking at that 3-5-5 model, and if you've been a proponent for wanting those top 2 teams in the conference to really be the ones that get to vie for that championship.
Yeah, well, I'm excited about it, Dan. I was one of probably many coaches in our side of the division. As a player, and just use Isaiah as an example, he's a Virginia native, and we're going to play the schools from Virginia twice every 12 years, so he'll get to play them one time maybe in his career, and for us, we play Duke one every 6 years, and I just don't like that cycle of playing other teams in your league, particularly teams that are close that you recruit against, where players are going to be on your team and would like to go play back against those other teams, so on top of that, I think the best 2 teams should play each other for the championship game. I think that's how it ought to end up, and it ought to be settled on the grass. Even if it's a rematch, it ought to be settled on the grass, and so I like the dynamics of that. I'm excited about it and excited to get to play the other teams more often. I just think that's good for the television, it's good for the fans, and it's really good for the players.
Coach, right up the center aisle to your left. Sir, please stand.
Nope.
Thank you.
Jonas Pope, News and Observer. Coach, we've asked the players this, but in the offseason, when all the guys started the run it back hashtag and so many key pieces started to return, what were your thoughts about that? And what did it say about the culture and what you guys are building that so many guys want to come back for this last year and try to do something special?
Yeah, I think it speaks volumes. They want to be a part of it, and several of them could have left that were healthy, Corey Durden and guys like that, and some of them needed to come back because of injury. And it doesn't happen if you don't have that kind of setup, not just in the locker room, but with player to coach, coach to player. I'm very proud of that. I think we're the only staff in the ACC that had all 10 assistants return. We had, at one time, the fewest number of players in the country in the portal leaving our roster. We had a lot of players return, as you mentioned. So I think all of those things are indicators that it's a great place not just to play, but to work. And so I'm very proud of that because it hasn't always been that way. It's taken time, not just on my behalf, on the players' behalf, on the coach's behalf, the chemistry, getting it right. And so it's fun to be a part of that transformation and very proud of it.
Coach, to your right, just about the 7th row.
Hey, Coach, Colin Wilson with Action Network. NC State athletics has been interesting lately. The baseball team in 2021 got removed from the College World Series. The 2022 team was the last team in. The women's basketball team had their struggles with some things. And last year, the football team, day before the bowl game, got the rug pulled out from under them playing in a wonderful bowl out west. Is there more of a chip on the shoulder of this roster, just more of an attitude of ready to take control, just, than other seasons that you've had before with, and maybe that plays into some of the players coming back, but is this roster particularly looking forward to getting revenge on maybe not playing a bowl last year?
Yeah. Well, you're a doom and gloom guy, huh? I mean, damn. That was day of the bowl game, by the way, not day before. I wish it was day before. We might have found a team to play us. But, yeah, we've had some tough things happen, and I think, adversity creates opportunities, and nobody likes, feeling like you got the raw deal, which several of our teams have probably felt that way. It's going to come full circle, and we're going to be smiling at the end of it, and I believe that wholeheartedly. It's about how you act and how you respond and who you're with. And I'm with 3 incredible people today, but I get to go to work with a great staff and a great locker room. And that's going to come full circle. It will. I believe that. And this is going to be a great time for that to happen. I know our fan base feels the same way that you talk, that there's been some bad things for whatever reason, and would love to set the record straight that we want to get that right, and see the right things happen. And I believe, when you do the right things over and over and over, eventually it comes back to you, and that's what we're going to try to do.
Coach, to your left at the aisle, gentleman standing 4th row.
Hey, Coach, John Dales, WAER. What gets this team over the hump to win an ACC championship?
It's another play, I think anytime we lost 2 games last year that kept us out of that game to win it, and it's one more play that you have to make. That's it, and whether it's a defensive play, an offensive play, or a special teams play, we lost 2 one-possession games, and had we won either one of those, in the Wake Forest game, we recover an onside kick right on the 10-yard mark, and replay says we didn't get it. We make that play, then we probably go score and win that game. Miami game, there were several plays that prevented us from winning, and if any of those plays changed, we win that game. So it's really no different than how we beat Clemson. Devin threw a pass to Devin Carter in the corner of the end zone, and we made a play. And that's how we won that game. UNC game, Emeka makes a play from Devin. Chris makes an onside kick recovery, Chris Dunn. Emeka makes another play. And that's how you win football games. There's a lot of mistakes that happen on both sides. At the end, it's going to come down to one player making sometimes a routine play that changes the outcome of the game. And so for us, it's just doing that repetitively. You have to do it, in every game you play in the conference.
To your left, 2nd row.
Hey, Coach, Steve Reed from the Associated Press. What do you think about the depth of talent at the quarterback position in this division?
Yeah.
Can you also speak to your own quarterback and what your expectations are
Yeah.
of Devin?
Yeah, I've never seen it. As a head coach in this league, where all 7 teams in the Atlantic had all their quarterbacks returning. So it's unique. I think you're going to see a slugfest. I mean, we know, you ask our players, when you play ACC football, every week you got to show up. It's a very well-coached league. It's a tough league. The kids play hard. And every time you go out there, you got to earn the victory. And if you're playing a team whose quarterback's not savvy, doesn't have experience, and yours is, you have a great advantage. And so we don't have that in any game as far as playing against a non-starter. And as far as our guy goes, I think his stats speak for themselves as a player. Things he did, taking care of the football, the clutch throws, the 2-minute drives, the red zone performances. But on top of that, as you get to know Devin, the human being that he is, the teammate that he is, the coachable player that he is, the family person that he is, that's what makes it fun to coach him, and God blessed him with arm ability, but the family that raised him gave him the opportunity to be the young man that he is. And so I'm privileged to coach people like that. It's not always like that. You don't always get people that you get a coach that are humble. And with him, it's been a great journey, and just look forward to extending it.
Same general area, Coach. 1st row, though, to your left. Same spot.
Joseph Jones, CarolinaGridiron.com. Last year, you held opponents on third down, a very low success rate. Going into this season, how excited are you knowing that you have some really solid defensive starters coming back? How can you then utilize this to improve what was already a really good opponent third down percentage?
Yeah, I think Coach Gibson and the defensive staff, present different things that are unique. And our scheme, the 3-3-5, allows us to do a lot of things, to hide things, to bring pressure from different places. And it's simple. It doesn't seem simple to the teams we're playing, but to the kids, they can play really fast in that scheme. How do we get better? To me, it's about creating more fumbles on defense. If we can continue to do what we've been doing, stopping people on third down, intercepting the football with takeaways, when you get more sacks, you usually get more fumbles, and I think just creating more short fields for our offense, and that's the one area, if you look at us statistically, would be getting the ball back through the fumble category more, and that to me happens when you sack the quarterback more. I think that's where the ball gets fumbled most probably, so we're going to work hard, in this training camp coming up and every single facet of what we do, but I know if you ask Isaiah and all the guys, it's always about getting better. It's always about raising the bar on our program.
Left side, fourth row.
Right here, Coach. John Eads with Orange Fizz. You got all-conference defenders up and down every level, especially in the second level. You got 2 all-conference linebackers right here. Is this the best defense you've had in your time in Raleigh?
Well, it could be. I mean, last year's was statistically, and now these guys and all of us have a goal of being better. Like I just said, it's always about raising the bar. So last year's defense statistically did a lot of things that we haven't done, and so now it's about improving upon those statistics. Last year's stats don't win this year's games, so we need to go do it and go out there, and I think these guys understand that it's not easy, I mean, every time you go out there, you're going to have to prove it, and you have a circle on you on the calendar now, you're in a little different position, so with the notoriety and the stats comes people's best efforts, right? And so that's what we're up against right now.
Coach, your final question, back to Bob Holliday on your left.
Coach, you lost Peyton Wilson early with an injury. Still had one of the 2 best defenses in the league. How is Peyton? What impact do you expect him to have? And with so many players returning, I think you had like 10 out of 11. How high is the ceiling for this team defensively?
It's interesting because last year there was one towards the end. It might have been the bowl game, but we had 8 starters out going into the bowl. I think we played UNC with 7 starters out on defense. And so that says a lot about the guys that stepped in, like what Levi did, playing for us last year, the way Josh Pierre-Louis stepped up at nickel, Devin Boykin comes in at safety. It was like each week a new guy came in and just elevated play. C.J. Clark goes down, and we move Corey Durden to nose, and he's all conference, and so a lot of really cool things happen that way. And what that did is create depth for this year because now the guys are back, like Peyton that you mentioned, along with the guys that played all season, like Drake. And so it built, that depth in your roster. And so now we can rotate, or if you have a guy out, you feel better about what's coming in the game. Peyton's 100%. He feels great. He's excited. I'm happy for him. I thought last year would be the last time I coached him, and so I think he'll tell you that it wasn't fun going through what he did, but he's in as good a place as he's been mentally right now. So I'm very excited for what he can bring to the field for us this year.
Coach, thank you. You can switch spots with Devin.